My sister admitted to a crime.
What type of crime?
I really don't want to talk about it anymore.
What was the purpose of putting those things in pots?
To cook them down. I don't remember. I just started them. I put 2 of them in the oven.
When Jimmy Schaefer went missing, it was assumed that someone had kidnapped him. Yet the truth of his actual fate is far more bizarre and gruesome than anyone could have ever expected. Not only was the identity of the culprit completely unimaginable, so was the horrific discovery that a few of Jimmy's body parts had found their way into someone's oven.
What's going on?
My sister needs to be Baker acted, and she needs to talk to a sheriff's officer.
Why does she need to be Baker acted?
She has pills, and she's threatening to take them, and she's admitted to a crime.
What type of crime?
I really don't want to talk about it anymore. I would like to see the police officer in my front yard, please.
Okay, well, they're on their way, but they have to drive there, and while they're driving there, I need to get some information from my deputies.
She's currently being investigated in a missing persons case.
Okay.
On April 3, 2013, Candy Medina started to suspect that something was seriously wrong. Candy lived with her boyfriend, 36-year-old James Schaefer, nicknamed Jimmy. However, she hadn't seen him since he'd left the home the day before. Jimmy was employed as a driver at Blue Diamond Limousine, a limo rental company in Deltona, Florida, and had left for work around 3 p.m. on April 2nd. He'd reportedly had an assignment in Tampa that night. When he didn't return home that night, Candy wasn't surprised. Jimmy had chauffeured trips that had lasted days at a time before. Later that day, Candy called Jimmy's boss to make sure that Jimmy was still at work. What she was told made her blood run cold. Jimmy had turned in the money from the Tampa trip and left work hours ago. He was actually supposed to return to work that afternoon for another assignment, but he didn't show up or call. Candy waited restlessly for Jimmy to return home, but day turned into night and Jimmy still wasn't there. She immediately called Jimmy's father, Thomas, who he spoke to on a regular basis. She asked whether he'd heard from his son recently. However, Thomas hadn't spoken to Jimmy in a few days. At that point, Jimmy hadn't been seen or heard from in well over 24 hours, so Thomas reported his son missing. Thomas later received a call from Jimmy's boss letting him know that Jimmy's red pickup truck was still sitting in the company's driveway. The obvious first stop for detectives looking into what happened to Jimmy was to visit Blue Diamond Limousine. The same day the missing persons report was made, police pulled up to the small limo company where a mechanic claimed they had actually witnessed something unsettling after Jimmy returned from working the Tampa job, and just before he went missing. According to the mechanic, he was asleep inside the residential area of the company when Jimmy woke him up around 3 a.m. He told him that one of the limos was having problems. The mechanic went outside and started inspecting the car, and from where he was, he had a clear view of Jimmy walking to his truck in the driveway. Jimmy was standing by his vehicle when a dark car with tinted windows and its lights off crept up and stopped in front of the property. Though the mechanic couldn't see the driver, a voice ordered Jimmy to come to the car. According to him, the voice sounded like that of a man. Jimmy walked over to the vehicle and the same voice told him to get inside. Jimmy complied and the car drove away, still with its lights off. Though Candy hadn't seen Jimmy, she had received a text message from him stating that he was having to hide out from someone, but that he was all right. She stated that while he allegedly owed several people money, she didn't know of anyone who'd want to harm him. Investigators spoke with nearby residents in hopes that someone could provide information that would lead to his whereabouts. It was then that they first made contact with his neighbor from across the street, 40-year-old Angela Stoldt, and she had some interesting details to share. According to Angela, she'd seen Jimmy in the very early morning hours of the day he went missing, after he'd left work around 4 a.m. It was behind the Deltona Winn-Dixie where Jimmy, accompanied by an unidentified man, made a cash drop to Angela in the amount of $150. She explained that she was the payee for her friend Jimmy's Social Security disability benefits checks, and that the two shared a bank account. The next day, investigators revisited Angela so they could photograph the text messages between her and Jimmy as evidence. Angela had received another text message from Jimmy on that very morning. It read, "I can't get it. Keep the cash for yourself." Angela responded to the message, telling him that the police were looking for him, but she never got a reply back after that. That would reportedly be the last time Angela would see or hear from Jimmy. The tone of Jimmy's text didn't seem particularly panicked, and according to Angela's account of their last few interactions, Jimmy wasn't behaving like someone under duress. It appeared that detectives' best bet of getting him to come back was to first find out what or who he was hiding from. Over the next week and a half, police contacted Candy and Angela on a daily basis to ask questions and see if they'd successfully contacted Jimmy. However, through these numerous conversations, investigators started to get the sense that Angela knew more about Jimmy's location than she was letting on. When they confronted her with this accusation, she shocked police by admitting that she actually hadn't been completely honest with them. The police then took Angela in for questioning, bringing her to an interrogation room at the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. The following interrogations have been analyzed by a qualified team, including a licensed attorney, a licensed clinical psychologist, and a licensed professional counselor.
I want you to understand something, sorry. We are conducting a criminal investigation, obviously. I told you and I promised you that prior to this, you have a clean slate. Okay? Clean slate. Whatever you told me before, we're starting all over.
Right off the bat, Angela's sunglasses limit the detective's ability to observe an important aspect of her nonverbal communication, her eyes. The eyes can give away a person's emotions. Though this does put the detective at a slight disadvantage, asking Angela to remove her glasses could be interpreted as an attempt to infringe on her rights or treat her like a suspect. If they want the whole truth from Angela, it's best the detective steer clear of anything that might make her feel like a target.
As long as I can get to the truth, I don't care how many lies it takes me. The door, it's not locked, you're not under arrest, okay? This is an attempt to get you out of this situation and find Jimmy and then close this case out.
The fact that Angela is free to leave means that this isn't a custodial interrogation. Thus, Miranda rights don't technically apply here. The detective is approaching the interview as if she's giving her a second chance at their first one. However, this isn't recommended. When an interview is a follow-up of a previous one, it's most common to use the narrative method, which treats the current conversation as simply a continuation of the previous one, and features open-ended questions and attendant cues. This method also provides the opportunity to build off the story and rapport from the last encounter.
Because what was reported to us is that he was basically abducted, okay? It was reported now that he is missing, he's endangered, and that he's been abducted. Now, what I need from you is I need for you to tell me all the reasons why that's not jiving with what you know. You're the closest person to him in this whole situation, okay? You're probably the last person now since the other day that has actually seen him besides who he's with. What was going on with his family dynamic? What did you know about before we came to visit you? What was the conversation? What was anything that was said to you to indicate that he might be on the run or he might be leaving?
The detective delivered Angela multiple questions without pausing to let her answer. This could be a sign of nerves on the investigator's part. Even officers may get nervous during an interrogation, especially under the tremendous pressure of handling high-profile missing persons and/or murder cases. Ideally, though, the questions should be kept short and simple so as not to confuse the suspect or themselves.
He told me his wife and they were fighting a lot.
So when you became the payee of his Social Security or whatever, why did you become the payee on it?
He begged me like for weeks, and I told him no several times. No, I don't want to do it. And he's like, I got nobody else. I just wanted to help him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've always just wanted to help him.
Right.
I tried to get his financial situation straightened out, but he's always stealing money from somebody and needing money for this, that, and the other.
Is he an addict? That you know of?
Not that I know of, but he does all sorts of stuff.
In addition to not stacking the questions, investigators should also be careful not to add unnecessary memory qualifiers to their questions. When the detective tacked on the "that you know of" to the end of the question, it simultaneously made the question weaker and made it easier for the suspect to lie. Angela's answer would have been far more meaningful if she was allowed to answer the original question and introduce the selective memory statement herself, which then would have been an indication of possible deception. Since the detective is the one who used the phrase, they've missed an important potential red flag. Angela has been noticeably still since the interrogation began. While excessive movement can be an indicator of stress or discomfort, lack of movement can also be a symptom of dishonesty. This is because nonverbal communication is a normal part of conversation. When it's absent, it's often due to the fact that the individual is focusing most of their cognitive power on what's coming out of their mouth and not on what they're physically doing. Thus, their body language typically won't align with what they're saying, or they just won't move at all, as we see here.
When was the last time you seen him?
I
Recently?
can't remember the day.
2 days ago?
No.
How long ago?
Week and a half? I don't even know what date it is. It's
Okay, so we were at your house several times. The day that I saw you, okay, was a Thursday? Is that a Thursday?
it was like the day after that.
When someone pushes on their face or forehead, like Angela is doing here, it's typically a sign of stress. This particular behavior is called facial distortion.
He came by, he wanted the money, he got mad because I told him that I put it in the bank and I didn't.
So I asked you straight up today, have you seen him? You said no. You told me that several times, right? And then what happened? You tell me the truth. So there's the problem. Now I told you and I promised you that if you were honest from this point forward, we're not even going to deal with that. We're not even going to worry about it. Okay? It's, as far as I'm concerned, you have a clean slate right now. As long as you're honest with me and you continue to be honest with me and you don't impede my investigation any further, you understand something? Do you understand what's going to happen if this turns into a homicide? Have you ever thought about that? Ever thought about if somebody actually does find him before we find him? You're not telling us the truth on X, Y, and Z, and meanwhile, everyone who's after him finds him and they don't give a shit about him, and if he ends up dead in a ditch, how are you going to feel about that?
Horrible.
The detective is trying everything she can to elicit a response from Angela. Since Angela has alleged that people are after Jimmy, the investigator is stressing that Jimmy could be in grave danger. If the parties Jimmy is supposedly hiding from track him down before law enforcement is able to.
And there you go. We're telling you he's not going to jail. Okay? I want to take him out of my database as missing. He's clearly trying to evade us and anyone else that might be looking for him. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if he's bullshitting or not because he could be lying to you. This could be some stupid ploy for him to clear his name with everything and walk away from his whole life. And it sounds like he just wants to start over. You're the payee on that account. He's overdrafted that account because you granted him access and you ultimately were responsible for that account, correct? So your name is not coming off of that until we lift this freeze. They're not going to let you have any access to that account. And rightfully so. You trusted him. You over. You tell him to come to us. He you over again. And he's going to come back to your house.
Notice that until this point, Angela has nodded her head in agreement to every point the detective has made. But when the detective gets to her next point, about Jimmy coming back to her house, Angela doesn't nod along. This may indicate that she doesn't agree with this statement, but what makes her so sure?
Okay, who's to say that he's not going to come to you and say, take whatever's out of your own bank account then? You know, that's why, what if he says that to you? Get me the money. What if he puts you in the car and he tells you to go be a prostitute? I mean, I'm just thinking outside the box here. Did you tell him to put a hole in anything?
I texted him, but it didn't want to go through.
From the time you seen him that morning at the Winn-Dixie, when was it after that you seen him again?
Right, the very next day.
The very next day, so the 5th. The 4th is when he was reported missing. And that's when you met him at the Winn-Dixie, correct? Okay. So the day after that? Okay. Was it at night, during the day, or?
Night.
Night. And where was that meeting?
It was on my front porch.
Okay. What did he tell you? I mean, did he talk about where he was, where he's been?
He was talking really fast, saying that he needed the money so he could go get more. And I told him I deposited it in the bank.
Where did he say he was? Because I know he's not just going to show up and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's going to say, "Hey, I've been somewhere. I got to go back to at least give you a city."
Anything
Nothing.
about where he was going.
How did he get there?
And it was a car in my driveway. I didn't even look at it.
What color?
I have no idea. The silver.
Was it the same car you seen that morning?
It could have been. I don't know.
We know that you know Jimmy a lot more than the way you're playing it off here. You know Jimmy, and I have a feeling you might know the people he was with. You know a lot more information than what you're telling us, okay? I know that based on the way you're acting right now. And I don't want you to lie to us. Have you spoken with him since?
No, sir. I tried.
Tried as in how?
What are you looking at?
Texting?
I just have other things on me.
Oh, I'm looking at your text with him. I'm not looking at anything else.
Has he replied to you since you tried texting him? Where is he staying right
What
now?
does this mean? Dude, it seems like, I'm sorry, it seems like conversations are deleted. Were you deleting conversations in this? Because it doesn't even make sense. Like, is it, you wrote, did it help? Did what help?
Oh, I can.
You wrote, beyond burnt out, and then you wrote, did it help? And he wrote a bit.
May I see it?
I don't know. I can't. They're all over the place. You have some that I don't understand how they're not even. They don't go consecutively.
You've driven him to get dope, right?
Once or twice.
Within the many years that you've known him? I find that hard to believe.
It's surprising that the detectives are freely searching through Angela's text messages this way, as it seems like an invasion of privacy. Given, Angela handed her phone over to the detective, but she didn't give her express permission to search through it. She might have only been giving the officer permission to look at the specific text messages they were discussing at the time. Besides being a poor trust-building choice, this could potentially give rise to legal issues later down the road.
So, back to him coming to your house. So he comes to your house to get the money, and you tell him that the cops are looking for him, whatever. What does he say?
Does he just walk up and say, "I need to get away from everything"? Or how does he start it?
Give me the phone. I need you to concentrate on this. We'll go back to that. I need you to concentrate. When he came to your house, what was said?
Although it's clear that Angela couldn't fully concentrate on the conversation while on her phone, the way the detective confiscated it is more in line with how a teacher might reprimand a student. Still, the phone was serving as a distraction and needed to be removed in order to focus the interrogation. It doesn't appear that Angela's Fourth or Fifth Amendment rights were violated as a result of the confiscation, given the circumstances. It doesn't seem that a warrantless seizure occurred, nor that she was deprived of chattel property.
He said he needed the money back so he could go get more. So he could get the bank straightened out so he could get the money. So he could pay his mortgage and pay back some stuff that he stole. And he said, "Don't tell anybody I was here." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because if the cops find me, they'll find me. They're using the cops." And I said, "Who?" He said, "I'm not going to say." Hello? Hey, one moment. Do you want to talk to him?
Who is it?
My husband. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Where's he?
I don't know.
Your husband's missing?
No.
Don't even say that.
Oh, sorry.
He is to me But apparently somebody knows where he's at. He's still cashing his checks and stuff. I mean, not. He's still
So he calls you from random locations?
His phone is registered in Ohio.
He was Jimmy's best friend.
Are you kidding me? Is he with him?
I don't know.
Like, thick as thieves.
Did your husband disappear at the same time Jimmy disappeared?
Oh no, my husband disappeared a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So does this not sound familiar to you?
The detective's behavior is particularly unprofessional here.
I mean, Jimmy all of a sudden is doing the same exact thing that your husband did?
I know, and that's.
Where's your husband? Is he in Florida?
I think so.
So you guys are officially married.
We're married, yes.
And he just disappears.
He had a few strokes.
How long has Jimmy been working for his boss?
Years.
Angela asks for a smoke break. She and the detective return minutes later, and the questioning immediately resumes.
Just got off the phone with somebody. Are you sure you talked to him after the day he was reported missing? Because I have a feeling Jimmy's dead.
No.
The information I just got. Let's be honest with each other. Have you spoken with him?
I don't know what I've told you.
Did you really talk to him? You sure about that?
Notice that when the conversation starts, Angela's glasses are resting low on the bridge of her nose so that her eyes are exposed. However, when the detective begins to question Angela's story, her first reaction is to push her glasses back up to fully cover her eyes again. An incredibly telling gesture.
Do you know if Jimmy's alive or dead? What's that mean? You shaking your head?
I haven't seen him since I told you.
Do you think Jimmy may be involved with something else? Such as selling and maybe being a middleman?
Possible.
Has he ever told you about it?
No.
Investigators are still searching for motive and underlying circumstances, looking at drugs as the driving force behind the disappearance. Where first the detective shared sentiments that Jimmy is probably dead, he's now working with a theory that suggests that Jimmy's alive. This approach is a common and passive way of posing alternative theories of the case without disclosing additional evidence to suspects.
I find that hard to believe. Because somebody that...
Like I said, he's told me about getting drugs for people, but he's not really gone into detail.
I'm hoping he's not dead like people are saying.
People saying.
People are saying that they heard Jimmy got murdered. And if Jimmy got murdered, and you're not telling us where he is, you can be held accountable. Because you've seen him, you've seen him last.
But I haven't.
Not as the person who murdered him, but there could be principle there.
This isn't actually true and is likely just an intimidation tactic. Being the last person to see a victim alive doesn't subject the witness to criminal liability, but it does typically make them a person of great interest. Strangely, Angela shows no visible reaction to hearing the rumor that her friend is dead. If she really had been in contact with him like she claimed, it would make sense for her to be assured of his well-being and brush off the gossip. However, her silence is deafening. She also appears to be sitting rigidly still at this moment. This could be an example of the freeze response, or when the body momentarily locks in place, usually immediately after perceiving a threat. The detective surely notes this physical reaction, but sensing that he won't be getting much else from her, he asks Angela if she has anything else to add. After spending another minute and a half in thought, she confirms that she has no more information and is sent home. But police continue to maintain near daily contact with her. They couldn't shake the feeling that she was a vital part of solving this mystery. They couldn't have predicted just how big a part Angela played in her neighbor's disappearance. Fortunately, police didn't have to wait too long to find out. However, it wasn't Angela who would come forward, but her sister April. In the early morning hours of April 21st, 2.5 weeks after Jimmy went missing, April made this 911 call.
911, where's your emergency?
My sister needs to be Baker acted, and she needs to talk to a sheriff's officer.
So she tried to hurt herself this evening? What's going on?
She has pills, and she's threatening to take them, and she's admitted to a crime that she's being investigated for.
Where is your sister at?
She's in the house hugging her kids goodbye.
Why is she hugging her kids goodbye?
Because she came to the house and she told my parents that she committed a crime and that she's being investigated for it. She says it was self-defense, but I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. I told her I didn't want to hear it anymore. I walked out of the house with the telephone. So.
Officers arrived on the scene and spoke with April briefly. According to official police reports, she explained that a tearful Angela had just disclosed to her that she wanted to end her own life because she'd committed a crime. She wished to sign over her parental rights of her children to their grandparents. Then Angela provided a shocking confession. She drugged, then strangled Jimmy. Around this time, contact was made with Angela, who was reportedly hysterically crying and asked for an attorney. She was then detained and transported to the sheriff's office, where she spoke briefly with investigator Brady. He informed her that under the Baker Act, she was currently in custody. Florida's Baker Act law enables families and loved ones to provide emergency health services and temporary detention for up to 72 hours for people who are impaired because of their mental illness, have refused voluntary examination, and have the potential to harm themselves or others based on their recent behavior. When Angela learned that she wouldn't be going home, she became visibly shaken and began to cry, repeating out loud, "I'm sorry." Officers came in and escorted her out of the interrogation room, and as she walked past investigator Brady, she whispered one spine-chilling phrase: "You should have come in my house that first day." A few hours later, an investigator returned to the residence where Angela was detained in an effort to obtain more information about the situation. April alleged that Angela was prescribed medication due to medical issues. At times, when she'd failed to take her medication, she would suffer psychotic episodes. She described Angela's demeanor as perfectly fine one minute and then crazy as a bug and crying. Though she described Angela as always off the rocker, the quick changes in her demeanor that day were not typical of Angela. After Angela received a psychiatric evaluation and was deemed to be relatively mentally sound, she spoke with investigator A.J. Pagliari within a small room at the crisis center where Angela was being held.
And every time that I come in contact you, I want to keep reminding you that, again, you were advised of your rights, okay? Do you still understand those rights?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that in mind, do you still wish to talk to me about the case?
I see no reason not to, no.
Okay, so do you want to talk to me about the case?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Miranda rights must generally be reapplied whenever there's a significant finding or extensive pause in an interrogation. There's no hard rule as to when re-Mirandization is necessary, but it's an easily applied safety measure that prevents statements or evidence from being inadmissible in court.
So far at this point, you've been a tremendous help.
I've done my best to be as completely honest as I can.
Okay.
I'm totally sleep deprived. I couldn't lie to you.
Okay.
I guess I could try, but it wouldn't help.
At this point, no.
I'm so relaxed now that
A tremendous weight's been lifted off your shoulders?
a horrible weight.
Okay.
Note the remarkable difference in Angela's posture from the first interview to this one. She's now in a very casual seated position, conveying that she is much more at ease. She may even feel relieved to be able to unload all of this information to someone, instead of trying to keep it inside or focus on maintaining dozens of lies.
I don't have many friends. I mean, you know my life, I'm sure, upside down.
Mm-hmm.
I've pretty much dropped out of society because of my health problems and this, that, and the other. I have Rob and a few other people I talk to, my family.
Right.
But Jimmy was like my only, friend.
Right. But he started taking advantage of you.
He took more than advantage of me.
I'm trying to remember everything. I'm so tired.
That's okay. Let's go to expedite the process. Let's go towards April.
Angela reports experiencing symptoms of sleep deprivation. According to her, her immense guilt and paranoia of the police had been making it nearly impossible to sleep for weeks. If this is true, there are ethical concerns with continuing the interrogation while she's in that state. Lack of sleep can cause impaired perception, trouble concentrating, slow reaction times, and may lead to someone making more mistakes than usual. It can also greatly increase the risk that a subject will falsely confess. Sleep is a basic human need, and despite what Angela is suspected of doing, detectives must be careful not to tread on her basic rights.
And let's talk about I guess you said it was, for lack of a better term, you wanted to play a April Fool's joke on him.
Well, it wasn't really an April Fool's joke,
Right.
but it was.
You wanted to kind of get back at him in the term, in the sense of, this is how you've treated me, right?
He lied to me so many times.
Right. So you wanted to turn the tables and lie to him.
I just wanted to lie to his face and see how he felt.
And then how was the lie set up?
He'd been trying to get money from his father.
Okay.
He drained his father dry. I mean, beyond dry. I think his father took out loans to give to Jimmy.
Okay.
He wanted me to ask my father, my dying father, for $2,000 to cover his thing, his rent. Yes.
Okay.
And I said, well, what about the account? Don't you need another whatever to get it right and back on track?
Sure.
How much do you really need, Jimmy? It's like, 4,000? I'm like, well, he's got it, I'm sure. I'll ask. He's like, thank you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'll even give him my title.
Title to what?
To his truck.
Oh, okay.
And perhaps it was here, while Jimmy was pleading for money from her gravely ill father, that her resentment festered and grew into something dangerous. The way her arms and legs are so tightly crossed give away how tense the topic makes her feel. It's unclear to everyone why she simply didn't choose to stop being his payee. It could be that she feared retaliation, or even that the influence of drugs affected her decision-making. Given her established medical history, she also could have been experiencing psychosis. However, it's atypical for an individual who experiences a psychotic episode to remember so vividly what happened while they were in that state. Then, there's always the chance that she may have simply felt that Jimmy needed to be punished and took it upon herself to deliver that.
At that point, I was so fed up with his lies.
Do you have any intention to get the 4,000 or even ask your dad?
I wouldn't ask my dad for him.
Okay.
I had the intention of just lying to him. And I don't like lying to people, but I was mad.
You told me before, just kind of accelerating a little bit, you said that it was you, your son, your daughter had went to Jimmy's work and picked up Jimmy from Blue Diamond. So did you drop the kids off?
Yes.
Okay. Now, after you drop the children off, what happens then?
We didn't drop them off. We went in and had a drink and talked. Yeah. And he's like, is he really going to do it? He's really going to do it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, from what he said he was, we got to go talk to him.
Okay.
He had to wait till 5 o'clock in the morning for my dad to wake up.
Oh, okay. What was in those drinks? What were you guys drinking?
We were drinking vodka, peach schnapps, and Flexerol.
Do you guys, both of you were drinking the same concoction?
Yes.
What is the Flexerol? What does that do for the drink?
It kind of enhances the buzz, I guess.
Okay, so you drank the same thing he did?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mix this up in a glass, or how does that work?
We use cups.
Cups. Okay. Did he know that there was Flexerol on the drink?
He did.
Okay. Did he put it in there himself?
Yeah.
Angela shows clear hesitation here when answering the question, whereas she had no problem answering the question immediately before it, a blaring red flag for deception. Her hesitancy is especially significant here, as this is a pivotal detail in the investigation. If it's found that Angela made and potentially spiked Jimmy's drink before the incident, it would demonstrate a considerable amount of forethought that certainly wouldn't align with the actions of a victim. Even more telling is the fact that she starts to shake her head no quite a few times before she answers out loud yes.
Yeah.
This is a clear example of brain and body mismatch.
Was he drunk?
He was lit.
He was feeling good? How about you?
I was a bit. But I tried to stay sober enough to drive.
Okay. Now, what do you tell him to get him into the car and go see your dad?
Let's go.
And so he's all excited.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Because you said that you're going to go see your dad to get $4,000. Okay. What happens next?
I drive him to the Osteen Cemetery. We park.
Does he ask any questions on why you're at the cemetery?
Yeah, he said, "Are we at a cemetery?" I said, "Yeah."
Okay.
And I said, "We got about 15 more minutes before he wakes up."
Oh, okay.
And I, thought we'd sit and talk.
Okay.
He's like, "Is he really going to do it?" And that's when I turned to him. I said, "How's it feel to be lied to, Jimmy?"
His reaction?
His reaction is, "What?" And then I tell him, I said, "My dad's not going to give you any money. I'm not going to give you any more money. And I'm going to turn off the check cash in advance." And that's when he gets irate. He's like, "I'm going to kill you." And he starts turning towards me, and he puts his arm over on my arm like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's reenact it again. I want you to sit here. Okay? You sit here. This will be the driver's seat, and I'll sit in the passenger seat. Okay? I'll be Jimmy.
By acting out an event, investigators can gauge the position, actions, and statements of both parties involved in order to, in this case, better determine if the incident was self-defense. Jurors will likely also see the video during trial, which can be helpful in determining the validity of the defendant's account.
So we're sitting here, and you're telling me, again, I'm Jimmy. You're not gonna pay me. Now you said, go ahead. What was he again? I can't recall. What did he say?
He said, I don't remember word for word.
That's
He
okay.
was irate and he started scaring me. And
So what's the thing with the arm? Tell me, if you don't mind, can I touch you? Is it okay?
I don't
Okay.
care.
What did he do with the arm? Which arm was it?
It was that arm
This arm? Right arm?
that he put on my shoulder, and he started putting his thumb.
Oh, into your shoulder, like your pressure point right here? Okay, now what did you do? You grabbed him back. Okay.
I pushed that, and
Okay.
after that, he started pushing up and pushing towards me.
Still, like with his arm extended, pushing his thumb into your shoulder joint right there?
He was pushing his thumb into my shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and he was also pulling his body up, pushing towards me. Not
So
pushing.
up out of the seat.
Yeah, he was.
So if you're like this, okay, again, we're just going to have to act this out, so just bear with me.
I'm not
So
worried
I'm
about
like
you hurting
this.
me.
And I'm pushing, now where's my rest of my body? Am I turned almost like this? How do I turn? He's a fat man.
Yeah.
How is he in the seat like that? He just contorted himself this way? And he's coming at you? What's he doing with his left arm? Do you remember? I'll take that down for a second.
I'm not worried about it. I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
She seems to be having trouble with the reenactment. This isn't unusual, as people who've experienced a traumatic event often have trouble remembering details of it. However, the detective makes a valid point about Jimmy's size. It would have been quite difficult for a large man to position himself inside a small car the way Angela is describing.
I remember the pain in my shoulder.
Okay. And did he say anything?
He said he was going to kill me.
Okay.
I'm going to kill you. And I took him seriously. Fear took over.
Okay.
I'm going to kill you is a statement that could believably cause immediate and reasonable belief of harm, given the circumstances of the threat. To fight for one's life would then be a reasonable response to such a statement, so that tracks. Many of the other details, however, don't make as much sense.
I had a bunch of stuff in my back seat.
Was it behind your seat or was it behind
my
Jimmy's?
seat.
Behind your seat, okay.
And I just reached in and grabbed something because I knew there was camping stuff in there. I just grabbed the first thing I could, and
What was it?
it was an ice pick.
Okay.
I wrapped my hand around it, and this hand was coming towards my face,
And I still got this hand over here like this, right?
and
Okay.
I went like that with it.
Okay, so I was coming at you, or Jimmy was coming at you.
Yes.
I got you like this, and I'm moving towards you, and you took the pick and stuck it in my right eye.
Yes, sir.
And what did Jimmy do? Did he release you?
No.
A man twice Angela's size, especially one fighting for his life, pushing her face and body back against the door likely would have made it nearly impossible for her to maneuver herself in a way that would allow her to reach into the back seat.
He's still coming at, still here and still coming. What do you do with this hand? Did he hit your face? Did he hit you in the shoulder? What do you do?
This hand comes up and does that number like that.
Every time the officer asks her a question about specific details, Angela adjusts her story, not only to answer his questions, but to fit the details into her account of events. It's clear that she's making her story fit with what she thinks the officer expects to hear, but it's just not making sense.
Okay.
And then I don't know how deep it was. I don't even know if it was that deep.
Okay.
I was scared.
What's he saying?
God damn it, I trusted you and I need that money because our whole family's going to be kicked out. Don't you care that my children are going to be homeless? And he was still coming at me. So I go for the box of tools and stuff.
Angela describes the tool she grabbed as a DIY contraption consisting of two short pieces of PVC pipe situated on both ends of a long cable. She claims she would use this device to climb trees.
So you grab this thing, and what do you do with it next? Again, because I'm still, correct me if I'm wrong, I still have you like this, and I'm still pushing up against you with my left hand, right? And this man's a big man. So he's got a lot of force coming at you. But I still have an ice pick in my eye.
And I don't, he's yelling at me at this point. I don't know. It just went so bad.
Okay.
I do remember grabbing that thing and
Okay. Good.
wrapping it around. I grabbed the other side of it. He has my arm like that.
Mhm.
I grab it like this,
Mhm.
and I grab it like that, and then I put my feet.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Angela has been using her drink as a way to alleviate her anxiety. She pauses her story at a very intense moment in order to take a break.
I'll put my arm down real quick. You let me know when you're ready to continue. You ready? Okay.
First of all, I put my foot like that. I
Okay,
push
go
him
ahead.
back.
You gotta put your foot on my shoulder? Go ahead.
No, push him back.
Okay, gotcha. And you have each piece of where's this hand? You have the pieces of the PVC. Each hand's got one. Now pick your foot up. You said you were pushing on me? Okay,
Anyway,
go ahead.
I kind of slid into his lap
Okay,
so I could get my feet up like that.
okay,
And
gotcha.
I used my feet to push the PVC.
You got each piece of the PVC, so now the rope is just around Jimmy's neck.
Yeah, but he was already trying his best to push me off.
So now he's pushing on you to get, because you're pushing, but you're countering him with your legs and you're pulling on the PVC pipe. Okay, each piece of the PVC. All right, keep going.
I remember at one time my foot slipped and I kicked the ice pick. I pushed it deeper.
Oh, ow. Okay.
If what Angela is saying is true and Jimmy was able to move around and speak with the ice pick in his eye, that would realistically suggest that he was aware and able enough to protect his life if they truly were in a struggle. not limited to knocking Angela unconscious with one blow in the confined space. The proximity between them and the car was so close that, even completely blinded, he could have overpowered her, a detail that the detective has surely picked up on as he continues to try and make sense of the situation. In her reenactment, there is a lot more space for her to move, but in reality and in the confines of the car, they would be much closer, making her story even more impossible.
At what point did his body go limp? Is that what happened? I mean, did he stop resisting? Did he stop fighting you? Did he stop trying to attack you? I mean, did his arms just fall to the ground, or did his head just slump forward? Did it slump back? Did he slump into the seat or dashboard?
Making horrible, horrible noises.
Angela is putting up a barrier between her and the detective here, not only with her arms and hands, but also by having her knees up. She's also eye-blocking, which can be a sign of discomfort with the topic. It appears that she's literally trying to block out the image or the memory of his gagging and choking. It's likely that the noises she's described reflect true memories that she doesn't want to relive, and these thoughts are causing her distress.
I don't even know how the pick got in the other eye.
Somehow the pick gets in the left eye? Okay.
I think I did it just to make sure.
Placing "I think" before the claim turns it into a selective memory statement. She's likely just hesitant to admit that she intentionally stabbed him in the other eye, since it clearly wasn't necessary once he was strangled. Selective memory statements also make it easier for the suspect to turn around later and change their story. And, as you'll see later, Angela will attempt to do just that.
So you think he was dead, but to make sure he was dead, you took the pick out of his right eye and jammed it in his left eye. And you say you're motioning as if you reamed it around. Any blood get on the seat of the car?
No.
Well, where did the blood go?
I pushed his head back and it kind of started dripping. And I'm panicking and I don't know what to do.
Notice that she doesn't directly answer the question of where the blood went. An inspection of Angela's car, a sea green 1995 Saturn, revealed that besides the bag of blue gloves, very few traces of the crime scene were present inside, including minute traces of blood. On top of that, all the blood tests done on the car and the articles inside came back negative. How Angela was able to keep blood from getting all over her car, especially provided that he was fighting her with the ice pick in his eye, is quite suspicious. But she seems to have a quite interesting and disturbing explanation for the absence of blood.
I look around for something, and in my Getty box, I find saran wrap.
Okay. So you find some saran wrap.
Well, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the best thing to keep the fluids out of my car. I wrapped his head.
Completely around his entire head with the saran wrap? How did you work your way around the pick? Was the pick still in his eye? Did you remove it from his eye?
No, I just pushed it through.
You pushed it all, even the handle?
No. I made a hole in the saran wrap.
You made a hole in the saran wrap. So now his face
made
is...
a hole anyway.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So his head is saran wrapped, but in his left eye, there's the pick still sticking out of his eye. Now, do you seat him back in the chair? I mean, right now I'm facing you. This is kind of as I'm imagining as he was at the end. So
I pushed him over and he's like slumped against the door.
So now I'm like this.
Well, no, he's more like that.
Like this.
Mm-hmm.
She then grabbed a shirt from the back of her car to place over Jimmy's head. After that, she proceeded to drive home with his lifeless body sitting up in the passenger seat, his head encased in plastic wrap and an ice pick jutting out from where his left eye should be.
I parked it in the driveway, ran in the house, opened the garage with the light off, and then I opened his door. He's already starting to fall out.
Yeah, because I'm like this. Kind of my legs are facing this way.
I put the pool down.
What pool?
It's a swimming pool.
You're describing like a
kiddie pool.
Okay. A blue kiddie pool, they said?
Yes.
Okay. And what'd you do with the kiddie pool?
I put it under him.
So, okay, so it's outside his door on the floor of the garage. Okay, so now you open the door, you're starting to fall. What happens?
I get back in my side of the car, close my door, and push against the back, and
Finish getting him out of the car.
yeah, I kick him out, but push him out.
Okay.
With my legs, because that's the only strong part of my body.
Okay. You're doing good.
I feel like I'm so
You're just telling the truth.
lock the garage and tell the kids to stay the hell out of the garage. The next day, I tell the kids to stay in their room, put the other pool down, and I put salt in the other pool.
Where'd you get the salt from?
I bought it.
Just for this?
I think so, I don't know.
There's a long pause before Angela responds with a selective memory statement. It's likely it already occurred to her that the detective can find out when she purchased the salt by simply checking receipts or security cameras, and she'd be right. This evidence would become a big point of contention at her trial after some shocking discoveries are made.
So you bought some pool salt, and you put it in one of the blue pools? What was the purpose of putting salt in the pool?
I don't know if I don't know anymore.
You're almost there. Come on, Angel.
Another selective memory statement and more face blocking. She may be afraid to discuss why she used the salt, as it speaks to the amount of thought put into her actions. She could be trying to avoid talking about what she did to the body, as it's generally an incriminating topic.
Did you grab a hacksaw? And what did you do with the hacksaw?
I cut him up.
How'd you cut them up? Legs first? Arms first?
I don't remember. I just started cutting.
Because you wanted to dispose of them?
Angela physically turns her body away from the detective, a clear visual communication that she wishes to close herself off from him and the question he's asking. Surely she recognizes that her actions at this point in the story are extremely out of the norm and don't exactly scream self-defense.
Remember earlier when you told me that you had put them in pots?
That was after they were in the pool.
So you took arms, legs, and head and put them in the other kiddie pool with the salt. And then you mentioned pots. What was the purpose of putting those things in pots?
To cook them down.
You were trying to cook them down to bone?
I don't know why.
Before this interview began, Angela agreed to show officers where she had disposed of evidence in Jimmy's remains. His silver flip phone was found directly next to the entrance sign of nearby Campbell Park. It was in a Ziploc bag which had been just barely covered in mulch. The SIM card and battery were missing. Angela admitted that over the last 2 weeks, she'd occasionally excavated Jimmy's cell phone and put the battery into it, just so it would ping off a cell tower and give some indication of his presence. This was to make it appear that Jimmy was still alive and checking his phone periodically, when in reality, he'd been dead for days. His ID was found in West Cryle Park, also buried in a Ziploc bag behind a dog waste receptacle at the back of the park. She then took them to the active construction site where she discarded a hacksaw in a pile of scrap metal. However, when she led the detectives to the spot where the pile had been, it was no longer there. She also directed them to the side of State Road 415, where she pointed out a green and black tarp and a piece of carpet from her trunk. Next was Austin Cemetery, where Angela took police to several dozen black garbage bags dumped along and within a wood line. Detectives noted that a number of the bags looked newer than others, particularly the bags with the red drawstrings. When they opened these bags, they discovered all manner of horrible contents. Inside were human remains and bones, a blanket wrapped inside of which was a box cutter, articles of men's clothing, empty bags of pool salt, and an empty bag of ice, among other things. The discarded clothing they found matched the description of what Jimmy was reportedly wearing when he was last seen leaving work. A few of these black bags were found much deeper in the woods, but they were ripped open and empty. Also found deep in the woods as well as on the ground around the bags were relatively fresh human bones, suggesting that scavenging animals got to the remains long before police did. They also found a pair of blue rubber gloves amidst the leaves in a small clearing. A bag of the same blue gloves was later recovered from the trunk of Angela's car. Among the most haunting of their findings was a whole human foot. It had been severed cleanly about 4 inches up the leg and had been horribly disfigured by decay, predators, and the elements. That brings us to the last piece of evidence that detectives found in the woods of Austin Cemetery, the piece that would undoubtedly haunt them and everyone present to witness it in the courtroom for years to come. In a few of the crime scene photos amidst the black garbage bags lay a single large stock pot. The pot is tipped over on its side, revealing a sickening yellow and brown pool of coagulated human remains. What clearly used to be a thick liquid had hardened into a gelatinous mush that featured all shades of nauseating colors. Sticking out of the big pot, halfway submerged in the soupy remains, was a single large bone, similar in size and shape to a femur. Angela goes on to explain more, but likely realizing just how egregious it all is, suddenly stops.
What did you do with the head? How did you try to boil it? Did you try to boil it down? Did you try to...
Yes, sir.
What you're doing, Angel, is you're telling me the truth.
Yes, but I'm doing so without a lawyer.
You're doing so because you want to tell the truth.
Angela appears aware that talking without a lawyer present might hurt her case. This acknowledgement will actually make it more difficult for her to later claim that she shouldn't have been interviewed without representation, as she clearly recognized the risk, yet continued to talk without requesting a lawyer.
How did you do these things in the kitchen with the kids not knowing?
I made them stay in their room.
You told me before that you tried to put one of the extremities in the oven and that it went horribly wrong.
I put 2 of them in the oven.
Were they legs or arms?
A foot.
A foot? 2 feet? A foot and what else?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Chunk.
When did it happen? Smoke? Smell? Did the children come out from their room when they smelled this or notice the smoke? Did the smoke alarm go off? What happened?
I don't have a smoke alarm.
Okay.
This is another example of stacking multiple questions on top of each other, and why it's not a good tactic. Notice that Angela only addresses one part of his question, completely ignoring the part about her children. In this situation, the suspect will often neglect to provide an answer for every part of the question, either because they lose track of the questions or they're being intentionally evasive.
I turned it off, and I opened up the back door.
Did the kids come out of the room? Both or just one or the other?
I can't remember. It's like, what was that? What's that awful smell? I'm like, get outside. I ushered him straight out the front door.
It's unlikely that she truly doesn't remember whether one or both of her kids responded to the smell of the smoke. She may be hesitant to admit more details involving her children, as it would cast her and her parenting in a worse light. Most will be horrified to find out that Angela did in fact have her kids with her when she carried out her devious plan, despite them having no knowledge of the crime whatsoever, making them victims of her erratic decisions as well.
What were you hoping was going to happen by putting the foot and this other body part in the oven?
I was going to try to cook it to ash.
Burn it to ash? Cremate it? And when this didn't work, what did you do next?
I put in bags.
Okay. Did you try to boil any other body parts?
I don't think so.
Saying everything out loud is likely making it all sound more horrific and real to her now as she demonstrates signs of overwhelm. However, Angela hasn't displayed any sorrow for Jimmy's death, so it's more likely that she's reacting to her anticipation of the punishment she could be facing. More than that, she surely recognizes that her actions are inhumane and will have the worst effect on what others think of her and her story.
What did you do with the children? Did they come back in and go to their rooms and then you continued where you left off? Or, I mean, you didn't want them to find out what was going on, obviously. So...
We stayed outside for quite a while talking to the police.
Talking to the police? Okay. Did the police happen to come by, or were they there because of the smoke? What happened?
No, they were there looking for Jimmy.
Oh, so that was pretty inopportune timing then. What happened with the police?
They didn't come inside that day.
Okay.
If police had gone inside her house that day, it's unlikely that they would have been able to execute a proper search anyway. Following her confession, police were able to execute a search warrant on the home. After animal control removed an aggressive dog from the residence, officers stepped inside and were met with a jaw-dropping sight. Peeling walls, dirty and broken appliances, animal feces, stained clothes, and discarded papers covered nearly all areas of the residence. The home reportedly smelled rancid and looked as if it hadn't been cleaned in years, which made it extremely difficult and hazardous to search through. Inside the garage, however, police recovered paper towels with reddish-brown stains on them. Just outside, on the ground, was a 2-inch dull red stain that appeared to be blood. There was something else potentially troubling about Angela's house. Officers photographed an upside-down pentagram that had been scrawled on one of the front windows. The adjacent window pane brandished a drawing of the all-seeing eye, generally depicted as an eye inside of a triangle. Also graffitied across the outer garage door were crosses accompanied by Jimmy's initials and the acronym RIP, a cruel and ironic grave marker. It wouldn't be long before the world would know the atrocities that took place inside Angela's discombobulated home.
Now, what did you do with the remains?
I put them in bags. Put the bags on the side of my garage.
Were they heavy?
Very. And then I pulled my car in the garage. And I loaded them up. I was in such shock. I don't remember.
What did Matt think he was loading into the car?
A deer. I told him I hit a deer.
You mentioned something to me before about a wheelbarrow. How does that come into play?
Put stuff in there.
Before it was in bags? So you took things from the kiddie pool with salt and put it into the wheelbarrow.
I asked for a lawyer like a long time ago.
I know you did, and I asked you if you understood your rights, and you said that you wished to speak with me without the attorney. Do you still wish to talk to me? I want to continue to talk to you, but do you want to continue to talk to me without a lawyer? Yes or no?
Wisely, the investigator pauses the interrogation to establish whether or not Angela is making a request for legal counsel. Seeking clarification is generally the best approach in an interrogation, even though current federal case law doesn't mandate police to do this. When dealing in matters this fragile, it's always better safe than sorry.
Cooperated completely.
You haven't. Nobody says that you haven't.
What am I being charged with?
Not being charged with anything at this point. I'm just trying to understand the story.
What am I going to be charged with?
Well, that I can't tell you because I don't know. I don't know the rest of the story.
Such a change of heart at this point seems rather abrupt. She seems unwilling to continue the interview, which is odd seeing as she's practically reached the end of the story and already admitted to all criminal culpability. Her slouched posture and positioning of her face in her hand are nonverbal indicators that typically communicate shame or protecting oneself due to fear.
I'd like to continue the conversation.
You know I haven't slept for like so long. Sleep deprivation can cause all sorts of things.
But I haven't deprived you of sleep. I've fed you. I've given you breaks when you wanted breaks.
May I have a cigarette now?
Are you what?
May I have a cigarette now?
Would you like to take a break and have a cigarette?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Say again?
I need a lawyer.
You need a lawyer? Okay.
Angela has now given an unequivocal request for an attorney, meaning the questioning must immediately cease. It does, and she's escorted back to where she was being held. Despite the police's best search efforts, neither a head or a torso were ever found. What was gathered was DNA tested and confirmed to be the remains of Jimmy Schaefer. 2 days later, on April 23rd, Angela was arrested and charged with Jimmy's murder. With her in police custody once more, Pagliari visited Angela for one final attempt at filling in some blanks.
There are no tricks here. There are just some things that physical evidence suggests to me, and there's some things that you said that don't fit what the physical evidence says.
Mhm.
We can't talk about elements of the case right now because you have invoked your right to an attorney. You see what I'm saying? We can talk about it. Maybe, I don't know if this right now is the right time to talk about it because of the attorney thing. And I'm not going to jeopardize the case. I'm not going to jeopardize your rights.
I've already been way too stupid. I should have been the attorney from the beginning.
The detective's concern of jeopardizing the case is correct at this point, as further interrogation could lead to inadmissible statements at the very least. Angela made it clear this time around that she had no intention of indulging the detective in any more talk of the case. Angela pleaded not guilty on the grounds of self-defense, and a year and a half later she stood trial, and it was there that even more disturbing details about Jimmy's fate finally emerged. Angela's defense team based their argument on Florida's Stand Your Ground laws, which state that an individual has the right to use deadly force to protect themselves from an attacker. Given that Jimmy supposedly threatened to end her life and attempted to physically attack her, she was within her rights to kill him. However, Angela's credibility quickly evaporated, partly because she suddenly decided to change her story on the stand. During her testimony, Angela contended that she only stabbed Jimmy in one eye, not both. She claimed that the ice pick was still in his right eye when she got home, and that she didn't remember stabbing him a second time in the left eye. However, in the confession footage, which was also shown to the jury, Angela is the one that discloses to the detective, unprovoked, that she stabbed Jimmy in the other eye, and confirms that she did it after she strangled him in order to make sure he was dead. Things only worsened for Angela when the prosecution presented a more believable theory. They suggested that Angela was furious with Jimmy for his poor money management skills and how he constantly took advantage of her. They even insinuated that because of how she covered her tracks, the murder could have been motivated purely by greed, the desire to have Jimmy's Social Security checks all to herself. Police were able to secure surveillance camera footage from Walmart where Angela was seen shopping with her 17-year-old son and 14-year-old daughter around 3 a.m. on April 4th. She purchased spray bottles, OxyClean, hacksaw blades, and 2 40-pound bags of pool salt. The following day, she was caught on film at Walmart again with her daughter, buying concrete cleaning solution and ammonia. The most incriminating of all, though, was that the plastic wrap and the blue gloves were purchased from Walmart just a few hours before the murder, while the ice pick was purchased sometime before that. During one of these trips to Walmart, Angela had Jimmy's phone and was texting her own phone as well as Jimmy's concerned family members, staging the text messages that Angela would later show police. So, what actually happened the night Jimmy died? The prosecution proposed this theory. Angela, along with her 2 kids, picked Jimmy up from work at 3 a.m. on April 3rd. It's possible that Angela's 17-year-old son's voice is the masculine voice that the mechanic heard beckoning Jimmy to the car. Angela drove Jimmy to her house where they shared a few drinks, as they occasionally did. What Jimmy didn't know was that Angela had spiked his drink with copious amounts of Flexeril, a muscle relaxant. The drug belonged to her sick father, so she knew that the side effects of Flexeril included drowsiness and dizziness. They finished up their drinks and she helped Jimmy into the car. She then drove him to Austin Cemetery and parked in a concealed area next to a tree. By the time they got there, Jimmy was incapacitated from the Flexeril. This way, Angela was able to easily stab him and strangle him to death. This sequence of events was corroborated by Angela's daughter, who was 14 years old at the time of the murder. Angela had actually confided in her own child that she drugged and murdered their neighbor after they'd picked him up from work that night. Given that proof of premeditation was now present, her charge was bumped up to first-degree murder, in addition to 1 count of tampering with evidence and 1 count of mutilating a dead body. It definitely didn't help her case when investigators located a folder on her computer titled Yummy Gore that consisted of images of mutilated bodies and body parts. Also, quite damning and not to mention stomach-turning was Angela's court testimony that in order to fit Jimmy's head in the pot for boiling, she had to remove the ice pick from his eye. Not surprisingly, her stand-your-ground argument was rejected by the judge. Angela's goose was, for all intents and purposes, cooked. On December 5, 2014, Angela Stoldt was found guilty of all charges. But there was still one question remaining. Why did she cook him? The only explanation Angela gave for why she cooked Jimmy was that her history of paranoid and delusional thinking led her to believe that she'd be taken away from her kids if anyone found out, so the evidence of her crime had to be dissolved. It should be noted that, according to analysis from a qualified team, Angela showed no evidence of delusional thinking, unreasonable paranoia, or psychosis of any kind during either of the interviews. She was attentive to all the questions, and though she was guarded and clearly burdened by the situation, she communicated coherently and recalled details of the crime very clearly. Angela was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, followed by 15 years and 5 years for the mutilation and tampering charges, respectively. But it doesn't end there. Angela is still adamant of her innocence. She's created a website by proxy where she claims that James Schaefer was trying to kill her and that she defended herself against him, which resulted in his death. She also claims that she temporarily lost her mind following in the murder, and that Volusia County Police and Florida prosecutors twisted facts. Since most of what she knows of the Miranda Act, quote, came from television programs where after a suspect requested an attorney and the next scene an attorney appeared, she maintains that she wasn't properly equipped to handle the situation she found herself in. Angela is in the Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida. We reached out to Angela in order to get her side of the story, and though she initially agreed to an interview, she later changed her mind. Still, she agreed to speak to us through email and answer some of our questions. This first email was just the beginning of some interesting correspondence. Angela told us that prior to the incident with Jimmy, she'd been in 2 abusive relationships, stating, "I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety disorder, and severe depression. My kids were my life, and for them I was able to put the abuse behind me and try to give them a peaceful life." When asked if she received counseling when she first arrived in prison, Angela stated that she did not. She said, "I was put on so many psychotropic drugs that I almost blew all my appeal deadlines. I wasn't able to fully participate in my defense or comprehend everything that was happening until it was too late." This very well may have been the case, but it's important to note that Angela appears to be emphasizing that she's a victim and is very self-focused, something we saw even more so in her later letter. The investigators, knowing I was often delusional, continued to coerce me to talk to them. I believed I was cooperating, but I right literally hung myself. Life now? Hell. I'm locked away from my kids. I wasn't there to finish my most important job in life, and my children suffered for it most of all. When I was taken away from them, they emotionally and academically froze. For years, they still haven't completely healed. Following this email, Angela agreed to write us a letter detailing more about her relationship with Jimmy and what she now claims really happened that night. "I was never afraid of Jimmy before that night. I was aware of his past arrest for assault, but he'd never shown me that side of himself. If he had, I wouldn't have put myself in such a vulnerable situation. Because I was his SS payee, we had a joint banking account that only I was supposed to have access to, but he kept finding a way to withdraw from it despite me changing the card, account number, or passcode several times. He came to me for help. I called SS and they wanted proof that he had authorization to work, which I had, and a bank statement showing that I was properly handling his money by paying his bills. That was a problem. I knew he was not going to like this and there was going to be an argument from him, so I drove him to my favorite haunt, Austin Cemetery. I told him we need to talk and went on to remind him that he'd made a complete mess out of the account, and in order to make it right I had to call the bank and get CCA canceled. I can't remember it all, but he was screaming that he'd f***ing kill me. It was his f***ing money. Then he started me. We struggled. I tried to get away, but he was too strong.
That arm.
This arm, right arm.
That he put on my shoulder, and he started like putting his thumb.
Oh, into your shoulder, like your pressure point right here? Okay.
He greatly overpowered me. He was still screaming, spit flying. I started seeing stars, flashes of light. I knew from past experience that I was about to go or die when he shouted that he was going to go to my house, kill my kids, and get his paperwork and the bank card, which he knew was in my bedside table drawer. The threat of killing my kids pulled me back from the brink and gave me the strength to fight for my life so I could save theirs. My hands weren't strong enough, so I reached behind my seat into a box containing camping gear that we were collecting for our upcoming camping trip and grabbed the first thing I touched, which I thought was a screwdriver but turned out to be an ice pick, for fishing, quick, humane kill, and hold for hook removal, and threatened him with it by putting it in his line of sight.
This hand was coming towards my face.
And I still got this hand over here like this, right?
And
Okay.
I went like that with it.
Okay, so I was coming at you, or Jimmy was coming at you.
Yes.
I got you like this, and I'm moving towards you, and you took the pick and stuck it in my right eye?
Yes, sir.
He didn't let go. He was enraged. I was terrified. I stabbed him in the eye. There's obviously more to this story. She's got that right. For now, however, this is where our correspondence ended.